When Meghan Markle married Prince Harry in 2018, something extraordinary happened. For a brief moment, it felt like everyone was on her side. The coverage was warm, hopeful, and even celebratory. Here was a modern woman entering one of the oldest institutions in the world. She was American, outspoken, mixed-raced, and self-made. And to many people, she looked like the future of monarchy, arriving right on time. And then somehow, very quickly, she became one of the most divisive public figures of the last decade. So let's discuss how this happened, in summary. To this day, conversations about Meghan Markle tend to spiral fast. Her defenders see her as a victim of cruelty, racism and institutional coldness, whilst her critics see her as manipulative, inconsistent and damaging. And what's most fascinating is that both sides often feel completely justified. So how did we get here? Why did the goodwill evaporate? And why does Meghan Markle provoke such strong reactions years after stepping away from royal life? To understand, we must first start at the beginning. When Meghan first appeared on the scene, the press coverage was mostly favourable. She was framed as intelligent, independent, and refreshingly modern. There was genuine excitement around the idea that the monarchy was finally catching up with the world outside palace gates. Meghan herself leaned into that image. She spoke openly about feminism, charity work, and social justice. She gave interviews that felt relaxed and confident, and for many people, she represented progress. But even in those early days, there was a subtle tension building. The British royal system is rigid, hierarchical, and deeply traditional. It's built on endurance, restraint, and silence. Meghan came from a Hollywood background where personal narrative, self-expression, and image management are central. Neither approach is wrong, but they don't sit comfortably together.
Now, many of them, better or worse, they don't listen until they have to, because the status quo is easy to excuse and it's hard to break. But it will pull tightest right before snapping.
And that clash became obvious very quickly. Unlike other royal spouses, Meghan struggled to blend into the unspoken rules of the institution. She questioned things, pushed back, and reportedly found the lack of autonomy stifling. To her supporters, this was understandable and even admirable. To critics, it suggested she hadn't fully grasped what she was marrying into. The monarchy, after all, doesn't bend easily. It expects adaptation, not negotiation. Then came the staff allegations. Reports began to emerge that Meghan was difficult to work for. Stories circulated of aides leaving their roles, complaints being made, and an atmosphere described by some as unpleasant and tense. Buckingham Palace later confirmed it had investigated bullying complaints, though the findings were never publicly released. This was the turning point. For critics, these allegations confirmed suspicions that Meghan was not the warm, compassionate figure she presented herself as. For her supporters, the leaks themselves were the problem. They were seen as evidence that the palace was trying to throw her under the bus. And what made it worse was the lack of transparency. Without clear facts, people filled the gaps with assumptions, and once narratives set in, they're hard to undo. At the same time, Meghan's relationship with the British media deteriorated rapidly. Some coverage was unquestionably hostile, invasive, and at times racially charged. Headlines compared her to Kate Middleton for doing similar things, but framed Meghan negatively and became widely shared. This fed into a growing sense that Meghan was being unfairly targeted. Whilst much of the criticism focused on the media's treatment of her, Meghan herself continued to engage with the press in selective ways. She spoke openly in interviews about her struggles, gave emotional accounts of feeling isolated, and later co-produced her own content, revealing her version of events. On one hand, she condemned media intrusion. On the other hand, she participated in highly publicised tell-alls. To her supporters, this was her reclaiming her voice, and to her critics, it felt contradictory. And that contradiction sits at the heart of why so many people struggle with Meghan Markle. The Oprah interview in 2021 crystallised this tension.
Hold up,
There are
stop right now.
several conversations
There's a
about
conversation with you
it. With Harry.
about how dark your baby is going to be?
Potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
Ooh.
Allegations were made about racism in the royal family, neglect, and mental health struggles. It was dramatic, over the top, emotional, and deeply influential.
They didn't want him to be a prince or a princess, not knowing what the gender would be, which would be different from protocol, and that he wasn't going to receive security.
What?
It was really hard.
For many viewers, it was shocking and evoked deep sympathy, and for others, it raised questions almost immediately. Some claims were either challenged or clarified because the timelines didn't always align. Details shifted, and the palace's response was minimal and cautious, which only fueled speculation further. The interview didn't bring closure. If anything, it hardened positions. People who believed Meghan believed her more strongly, and those who doubted her felt vindicated in their scepticism.
You can't muck around with facts. She got the facts wrong on that. It's been demonstrated today in every paper that fact is simply untrue. There's been no discrimination against Archie in terms of being called a prince because of his skin colour, because he's not entitled at the moment to be called a prince.
What made this even more volatile was the broader cultural moment. Meghan Markle didn't exist in a vacuum. By this point, she had become a symbol. For some, she represented a woman standing up to a cold, elitist institution. For others, she embodied what they saw as celebrity victimhood culture, where personal grievances are monetised and endlessly revisited. Debates about Meghan often weren't really about Meghan at all. They were about race, class, feminism, colonial history, and the role of tradition in a changing world. And once someone becomes a symbol, nuances disappear. Another major source of criticism has been consistency, or what many see as a major lack of it. Meghan and Harry spoke openly and passionately about wanting privacy, but have since signed deals with Netflix and Spotify.
I realized they're never going to protect you.
I was terrified. I didn't want history to repeat itself.
They criticised the royal system, yet continue to use royal titles. They pulled themselves from the institution, but regularly returned to it in storytelling. For their supporters, this was about survival and financial independence, and for their critics, it looked like they were having it both ways. This perception of contradiction has been incredibly damaging to Meghan's public image. It's not that people object to her speaking out, it's that they struggle to reconcile the messaging. When someone says they want a quieter life but repeatedly steps into the spotlight, audiences feel confused, even misled. Over time, that confusion can turn into cynicism. There's also the question of personal relationships. Meghan's estrangement from her father, fallout with other family members, and fractured relationship with the royal family have all played out publicly. Again, supporters see someone protecting themselves from toxic dynamics, whilst critics see a pattern of conflict that follows her wherever she goes. Whether fair or not, repeated breakdowns in relationships raises eyebrows, especially when only one side of a story is continuously told. Then there's the difference between American and British perceptions. In the US, Meghan is often viewed through a celebrity lens. Openness, honesty, and personal branding in America are normal. In the UK, however, especially among royal watchers, restraint and understatement are valued. Meghan's communication style, which resonates with Americans, can come across as insincere and performative to British ones. The cultural mismatch amplified misunderstandings on both sides of the Atlantic. And crucially, Meghan never stopped being talked about. Even after stepping back from royal duties, she remained omnipresent. People who wanted the story to end felt frustrated that it never seemed to. Fatigue began to set in, and fatigue often turns into hostility. It's also worth saying that not all criticism of Meghan Markle has been fair. Some of it is ugly, some of it is rooted in sexism and racism, and some of it holds her to an impossible standard no one else could meet. But it is true that not all criticism is baseless. Some of it comes from genuine confusion, disappointment, and a sense that the narrative keeps changing. So Meghan didn't set out to be polarising, but through a mix of circumstances, choice, media dynamics and cultural tension, that's what has become. For more summaries like this one, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.